Hello and welcome to the Skills and Training webinar entitled Roles and Responsibility of Committee Members. In this webinar, we will have a look at a charity trustee's general duties and specific duties as recommended by OSCA, along with the responsibilities of the chairperson, secretary and treasurer. I thought that I would start with a little bit of clarification on terminology. The title of this webinar contains the term committee members. However, in the 2005 Charities and Trustees Investment Scotland Act, the term used for those in charge of a charity and responsible for its management and administration is charity trustees. This term was used to cover committee members, board members, directors, or some other less formal titles or structures. The definition of charity trustees are people who have general control and management of a charity and are responsible for making sure that the charity works to achieve the charity's purpose. They are also responsible for ensuring that the charity complies with the law. The 2005 Act states that charity trustees are the people who have the general control and management of a charity. However, the Act also recognises that there may be situations where people who are not formally appointed as charity trustees can exercise influence and even control over a charity. An example of this could be an elected member of or employee of a local authority attending meetings of the charity trustees. The 2005 Act highlights the following 2 points. Number one, charity trustees are responsible for the charity and may not pass this responsibility on to anyone else as long as they remain a charity trustee. And number two, any person who, though not formally elected or appointed as a charity trustee, exercises some degree of control over a charity may still be held legally liable as a charity trustee. It is important to note that there are some people who are not allowed by law to become a charity trustee. Therefore, it is important that every charity trustee ensures that they are not breaking the law by being a charity trustee. Those who are disqualified from acting as a charity trustee includes someone with an unspent conviction for an offence involving dishonesty or an offence under the 2005 Act, someone who is an undischarged bankrupt or has a protected trust deed, someone who has been removed under either Scottish or English law or the courts from being a charity trustee, or someone who is disqualified from being a company director. It is this responsibility of the individual to make sure they are not disqualified from being a charity trustee. Anyone who acts as a charity trustee while disqualified is guilty of an offence punishable by a fine or imprisonment or both. It is also the collective responsibility of all the charity trustees to make sure that none of them are disqualified. If you know of a fellow charity trustee who is disqualified and you don't do anything about it, you may also be in breach of your charity trustee duties. Anyone who acts as a charity trustee while disqualified is guilty of an offence punishable by a fine or imprisonment or both. It would be good practice for your organisation to get prospective charity trustees to sign a declaration before they are elected or appointed to confirm they are not disqualified from acting as a charity trustee, or consider whether any other checks need to be carried out, such as a Disclosure Scotland check for charity trustees working with vulnerable beneficiaries. In some cases, the governing document may state who can and cannot be a charity trustee. For example, some charity trustees can only be chosen from the membership of the charity. When you decide to be a charity trustee, you commit yourself to be trusted to look after the charity's assets, as well as being responsible to making sure that the charity fulfills its charitable purposes. There are general duties to be carried out which will help the charity to be run properly, and also specific duties which are legal requirements all charities must meet. There are also some broad principles that trustees should take into account when helping to run the charity. These are considered under the following: number 1, collective responsibility; number 2, decision making; number 3, finance and assets; and number 4, reputation. The main points to remember with regard to collective responsibility are that all charity trustees are collectively responsible for the charity. No one individual trustee should have more power or control over the charity than the others. And charity trustees are not only responsible for their own actions, they are also responsible for the joint actions and decisions taken by charity trustees. An important part of running any charity is making good decisions. In order to help each trustee make these good decisions, they should have the right information which will help inform each decision. They should make decisions which align with the rules that are set out within the organisation's governing document, make a record of each decision that is taken, and be able to justify each decision taken if challenged to do so. It's important to recognise that there is nothing wrong with reconsidering any decision that doesn't work out the way that has been planned, or if the circumstances surrounding that decision change. Always keep in mind that there is always the option to seek professional advice if required. The main points to consider under finance and assets are that to make sure your organisation has the right skills and policies and procedures in place to look after the charity's finance and assets. This includes property, investments and money in the bank, but it also includes any money that the charity owes to other people and other organisations. Another point to highlight here is that there is an obligation to ensure that all the charity trustees have access to and an understanding of the charity finances. Remember too that a charity's reputation is also one of its assets, and when this reputation is in question, this can have a negative effect on how the public regards the charity, and can also have an effect on whether any funding bodies will allocate funding to the charity. Looking at the bigger picture, this can also have an impact on how the charity sector is viewed in general. Charity trustees have both individual and collective responsibility for the charity's reputation. It is important that trustees maintain the respect of the beneficiaries of the charity, as well as the public and any other interested parties, by behaving with honesty and integrity when carrying out their trustee duties. If this doesn't happen, then you run the risk of bringing the charity and its work into disrepute. So the duties of the trustee are that, number 1, they must act in the interests of the charity, and number 2, they must comply with the 2005 Charities and Trustees Investment Scotland Act. To act in the interest of the charity, trustees must operate in a manner consistent with the charity's purpose, act with care and diligence, and manage any conflict of interest between the charity and any person or organisation who appoints charity trustees. With regards to the compliance with the 2005 Act, there are a number of specific duties which cover charity details in the Scottish Charity Register, reporting to OSCR making changes to your charity, financial records and reporting, fundraising, and providing information to the public. So looking at the trustee duties in more detail, to act in the interests of the charity, you must do what is best for the charity and beneficiaries, not what is best for you, your friends, family, or your business interests. And you must put the needs of your charity before the needs of any other organisation or company that you're involved in. To operate in a manner consistent with the charity's purpose, every trustee and anyone working for the charity must be aware of the organisation's governing document. Trustees have to ensure that they are following the rules laid down by the governing document, that the charity's money and property are used for activities that are allowed by the governing document, and that the charity's activities advance the charitable purposes. Acting with care and diligence requires trustees to work together for the good of the charity and run the charity carefully. This includes ensuring the organisation complies with any relevant law that influences the charity's operations. Trustees must also ensure there are sufficient funds to pay staff and cover all operating costs and overheads. They must also ensure that staff and volunteers are treated properly and fairly. They must also ensure that the charity name, number, and logo are not used without permission and in a way that the reputation will be diminished. It is important that any conflict of interest is managed properly and not to the detriment of the charity. Conflicts of interest should be declared by charity trustees as soon as they are aware of them. The organisation should have a clear procedure in place that outlines what happens when there is a conflict of interest and how trustees will deal with it. For example, a conflicted trustee may be asked to withdraw from a meeting or part of a meeting. With regard to specific duties, there are duties that ensure the organisation complies with the 2005 Act, and it is up to the trustees to make sure that these duties are carried out. The first duty is to make sure OSCR receives the information it needs to maintain the Scottish Charity Register and that information is up to date. OSCR must be informed of any changes the charity proposed to make to the details recorded on the Scottish Charity Register. However, it must be noted that trustees need to ask OSCR for permission to change such important information as the charity's name and the charity's purpose. It is also important to inform OSCR if the charity has to wind up. Trustees have to ensure that the charity keeps appropriate accounting records. These accounting records should show a record of all income and expenditure relating to the organisation, as well as a list of anything that the charity owns and any money owed to anyone else. In other words, a list of assets and liabilities must be maintained. Every year, OSCR must be sent a copy of the annual accounts, trustees' annual report, external scrutiny report, and the online annual return. And please note that these accounting records must be held for 6 years. The specific duties that trustees must carry out in relation to fundraising are to make sure anyone tasked with raising funds for the charity is allowed to do so. There is specific information that the charity must provide to a donor before they agree to donate. Ensure that the specific charity regulations, which must be contained in a fundraising agreement between the charity and professional fundraisers, are in place and adhered to. Ensure that any fundraising carried out, either directly or on behalf of the charity, complies with the Code of Fundraising Practice. When providing information about the charity to the general public, trustees must make sure that the charity's details are on all formal communications, such as letters, emails, invoices, and websites. This includes providing the Scottish charity number. If anyone asks for a copy of the charity's governing document or the latest set of accounts, they must be made available. If any of these specific duties are not carried out, or trustees break these rules, then Oscar may take action in line with their inquiry policy. So to summarise, Oscar has compiled a list of the top 10 key points to running a charity properly. They are: number one, always do what is best for your charity. As a charity trustee, you have a legal responsibility to put the interests of your charity above your own interests. All the charity trustees are collectively responsible for making sure that the charity is run properly and lawfully. Number two, act with care and diligence. You have to protect your charity, including its beneficiaries, assets, and reputation. Number three, understand your charity's legal responsibilities. Make sure your charity is meeting its legal duties under charity law and other relevant laws. Number four, declare and manage conflicts of interest. All charity trustees have a collective responsibility to manage conflicts of interest and to act in the charity's interests. Number five, know and understand your charitable purposes. Everything you do should be directed at achieving only the purposes set out in your governing document. Number six, have a copy of your governing document, know what it says, understand what it means, and what you have to do. Number seven, understand your charity's finances. All the charity trustees are responsible for the charity's finances and must have access to the financial records. Number eight, send Oscar the correct information on time. You must send your accounts to Oscar along with the trustees' annual report, external scrutiny report, and an online annual return every year. Number nine, make sure your charity's details in the Scottish Charity Register are correct and any changes made properly. You can update some details online at Oscar's website. It is a legal requirement for you to make sure principal contact details are up to date. If you want to make certain changes to your charity, you must ask Oscar for permission first. Number 10, give people the correct information. Make sure your charity publicises that it is a charity and display your charity number. There are three main officer roles that have to be appointed to make sure the smooth running of any board or management committee. These are the chairperson, the secretary, and the treasurer. The chairperson of any organisation is a key role on any board or management committee. The chairperson must ensure that the management committee functions properly, that there is full participation during meetings, that all relevant matters are discussed, and that effective decisions are made and carried out. The responsibilities of the role can be summarised within 5 areas. Number 1, to provide leadership. Number 2, to ensure that the board or management committee functions properly. Number 3, to ensure the organisation is managed effectively. Number 4, to provide support and supervision to the chief officer and senior team. And number 5, to represent the organisation as its figurehead. On this slide, there is a list of some do's and don'ts as to the qualities that make a good chairperson. This will be a good reference guide which may help when deciding on any vote that's been made to elect a chairperson. The role of the secretary is to support the chairperson in ensuring the smooth functioning of the board or management committee. In summary, the secretary is responsible for ensuring meetings are effectively organised and minuted, maintaining effective records and administration, upholding the legal requirements of governing documents, charity law, company law, etc., where relevant, and communication and correspondence. The secretary often acts as an information and reference point for the chairperson and other board or management committee members, helping to clarify past practice and decisions, confirming legal requirements, and retrieving relevant information. Again, this slide shows a list of the do's and don'ts that are applicable for the role of a secretary, which may prove useful when considering the next appointment for this role. The Treasurer, in having a watchdog role over all aspects of financial management, will work closely with other board or management committee members to safeguard the finances of the organisation. The responsibilities include general financial oversight, funding, fundraising and sales, financial planning and budgeting, financial reporting, banking, bookkeeping and record keeping, control of fixed assets and stock. Given these responsibilities, the Treasurer acts as an information and reference point for the Chair and other board or committee members, clarifying financial implications of proposals, confirming legal requirements, outlining the current financial status, and retrieving relevant documentation. It is important to note that although the Treasurer ensures that these responsibilities are met, much of the work may be delegated to a finance subcommittee and paid staff or volunteers. Even if the Treasurer and finance subcommittee staff or volunteers carry out much of the work, the final responsibility for the organisation's finances rests with the board or management committee as a whole. All members are accountable. So on this slide, we've also got a list of the ideal characteristics for the Treasurer to possess, which again may prove useful when you're looking to get someone to fill the role. It is important for the smooth running of the organisation to clarify the roles and relationships between board and management committee members and any members of staff. This relationship can prove difficult if these roles have not been clarified and the boundaries involved in the relationships have not been clearly defined. The relationships will be different dependent on the number of staff employed by the organisation. If there are only a few or even no paid staff, the board or the management committee will have a more hands-on role in running the organisation. In larger organisations, the board or the management committee will have less involvement in the day-to-day activities of the charity. When staff are employed, it is essential that the board or management committee and the senior staff members understand their roles and responsibilities and boundaries and have respect for each other's position and powers. It is important to establish the division of responsibilities, and it will help to maintain good staff to board management or management committee relations. This division would clearly highlight the board or the management committee's role of having the ultimate responsibility and the staff role to deliver within set targets and boundaries. It is key that the role of the board or the management committee in being ultimately accountable for both the organisation and its activities is in no way diluted. The responsibilities of staff or volunteers must be set out, and the limits to the delegated level of decision-making authority clearly understood. The distinction to keep in mind is that the role of the board or the management committee is to lead, direct, and ensure the organisation is operating effectively. And the role of the staff is to manage, implement, and carry out work that helps the organisation achieve its mission and overall purpose. And that brings an end to this webinar.